All right, hey, it's not very often I do this. It's been some time ago that I did this. I mean, it could be well over 2-3 years ago, or at least it seems like it's 2-3 years ago. But the reason why I'm saying that is, these things that we read. I've always find it interesting. Is yesterday I was told by an individual that they said, that's a cult. And I said, yeah, I guess it can be. They said, although I don't think that has the best connotation to it. I said, if it is, it's one of the greatest cults in real estate. So, people aren't just going to read this stuff all the time. And I said, that's possible. And the reason why is because I'm in the midst of trying to purchase this little company, and I thought it was an entertaining conversation of just how so many people won't do this and do the stuff that you guys are doing. But so yesterday I had the opportunity to think about that quite a bit, and I was thinking about. In fact, Russ, you were there, right, when we were talking about it, right? And I was thinking, it's interesting. I haven't heard that for a long time, because when we first were doing this years ago, or at least when Everest was created, 6 years ago, people would, make light of it or whatever. And, I know there's people who still do, but I find it fascinating that if I was just to look at this first thing, all right? So how many of you have read the book Think and Grow Rich? All right, so most of you, right? I mean, it's basically I will take all the books over time, if that makes sense, off of my nightstand or my right next to my bed, and I have 30 books right there right now. I mean, easily. I mean, to Jen's frustration, I promise. But I'll always make sure I have my copy of Think and Grow Rich right there on my bedside, and it is always there. And for me, that is a cherished book. I have a book about one of those old nostalgic ones years ago, and I've marked it up over and over and over again. And in the very, very beginning of the book, some of you may remember, is this quote. And years ago, I actually went to a company when I was actually speaking and coaching and training, and out there not doing the brokerage thing, but I was actually in other brokerages. And this is years ago, and they have this. I thought, that is absolutely awesome. And so I have to tell you, I actually didn't come up with it myself. I stole it because I thought it was pretty awesome. And it was a company over in Denver, and I thought, that's pretty cool. And then I went back to the book and I read it, and it said something like, it actually says this in the very end of this thing right here, Napoleon Hill. It says, I will sign my name to this formula. I'm just curious, in fact, I think in the script book, at least it used to, it may not now, but it used to actually have signature pages down at the bottom of it. I'll sign my name to this formula, commit it to memory, and repeat it aloud once a day. With full faith, it will gradually influence my thoughts and actions so that I will become a self-reliant and successful person. And so, I don't know how many pages, but it's in the first portions of the book on Think and Grow Rich. And as some of you haven't read the book in here, you didn't raise your hand, but that book is a fascinating book for just the factors of how it came together. And that was Napoleon Hill, being a journalist, had this great affinity for the rich, if you would say. When he wrote the book, I would even argue that he was not very wealthy. In fact, one would say that he didn't really have much at all. But he was friends, or had become associated with Andrew Carnegie. And Andrew Carnegie, the great steel magnate, the guy who basically changed our whole entire landscape of our world because of steel. And so he was friends with him. And Andrew Carnegie, and so Napoleon Hill and Andrew Carnegie, and I've heard the story both ways, and I don't know which is which, but let's just say one of them said, hey, I'd like to commission this book, or I'd like to do this book, and Andrew Carnegie, in so many words, said, I'll commission it with you, and I'll pay you, in so many words, basically, essentially nothing, survivability, to help you create it. And so he created this book, and what Napoleon Hill did is he went out and he interviewed all these extraordinary human beings who have just, that had dominated the landscape financially of the United States of America. So, of course, Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, P.T. Barnum, what's a few of the other ones? Rockefeller. He doesn't ever mention Rockefeller actually in the book, which is interesting. But in a nutshell, he went out and interviewed basically, J.P. Morgan is in there. He went and interviewed all of these guys that really were the ones who ran the country. I mean, literally. I mean, in fact, if you haven't had the chance to go see, if you haven't seen the series, I think it's just 8 or 12 of them. It's on Netflix. It's called The Men Who Built America. If you have not watched that, there's not many things I watch, but that was amazing. Like, amazing. The Men Who Built America. And it's a documentary, in so many words, but it shows just the fact that between J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, and there was a Vanderbilt, these were the guys who ran the country. Like, the President of the United States was not really that big of a deal. It was kind of a fascinating thing. So how many of you watched that yet? I mean, it is fantastic. I mean, go download that thing. I mean, you will be inspired. I mean, and you will see just the workings and the building of this country. And it is a fascinating 8, 10, 12 little series of 45 minutes each. And it is awesome. Anyway, The Men Who Built America. But so Napoleon Hill, between Andrew Carnegie and Napoleon Hill wrote the book, Think and Grow Rich. But before he wrote Think and Grow Rich, he actually wrote a much larger book, which was called he ended up calling it the 17 Laws of Success. Who's read that? All right, 17 Laws of Success. That's actually one of my favorite books because it really, it's nearly, I think, over 400 pages. And when he was done, and he was so excited about it, he brought it to Andrew Carnegie, and Carnegie said, dude, no one's going to read that. It's 400 and some pages. And so what he charged Napoleon Hill with doing is said, hey, you got to shrink this thing down. I want you to take everything from those 17 laws in so many words, and I want you to take everything that you think is the most precious and the most important things that, in so many words, mankind should know regarding money. And so that's where Think and Grow Rich. Then I don't know if I can't remember. I don't even know if the answer to this. Maybe someone doesn't here. But then that's what came about is Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And, of course, put him on the map of success and really brought him all his wealth and all the different things that Napoleon Hill created. But again, in the very first parts of the book, what he understood was that those who seemed to have the greatest levels of success had charted this course that we read every single day. And so, I look at the fact that from the J.P. Morgans to the Andrew Carnegies, all of them had like this statement, man, like, first, I know I have the ability to succeed or achieve the ultimate definite purpose in life. I mean, they knew it. I mean, and so Napoleon Hill, I'm sure, I just have to believe that he interviewed all of these individuals and he kind of garnered and took away from all of them the most important things, and then this is what he came up with. And then that's what he put in his book, and even in the book, it says it just like this. I'll sign my name to this. I'll repeat it aloud once a day with full faith, meaning I'll believe that it's actually going to work. So I hope you recognize that when you guys are reading these things, you might say, I don't really like that. Do you realize like what you're saying no to? You're saying no to some of the most like greatest minds, inventors, businessmen, individuals that this world has ever seen who have said, hey, you should probably try doing that. So I hope that you recognize that like what we're reading or what we do every morning, we say, man, it seems like so repetitive. It seems like, I don't know if I'm really into that. You got to step up. I don't have no idea why there's not a lot of people here today, but somehow Dalton figured out there was something better to do. But I find it fascinating that there's this struggle with this reality that this is what the greatest of the greatest have ever done. And then, we turn the page over, and I just want you to think about this. This is the 12 steps to the summit of success. Now you may think, well, Where did that come from? Well, I'll tell you where it came from. In the darkest hours in the last 100 plus years of this country, I sat at a little round conference room table about that size, by the side of John Syatt and Rob Oakey, and I had already done a little bit of work on this, and I had basically asked this question: what should an agent be doing? And I'd gone for, at that point, nearly 20 years of Mike Ferry, and I've heard, so many different people speak. It didn't matter whether it was Mike Ferry, Tom Ferry, Matthew Ferry, Brian Buffini, Howard Britton. Names. I'm trying to remember the gal's name, what her name was, but just person after person. Floyd Wickman. All of these people I've listened to over and over and over again, and then observing some, the greatest agents that the world's ever seen on the residential side. And I started saying, if I was an agent, what should be the minimum standard? What should be happening? So I'm just curious for you. We may read this in here, but how often are you going back to that as that is actually your job description? And so when John and Rob and myself, we sat down at that table, I said, all right, let's refine this. And this is what these 12 steps became. Is that basically, and sort of when you think about this, here's the answers to the test, now go take the test. Now think about that. That's what this is. This is the answers to the test. And yet, I get all the time people asking, well, what should I be doing? And I think, well, you should do these 12 things. And over the years, I've even had someone like Jason Carlson come to me over the years and say, well, do you really think, Eric, you can do all of those 12 things? I don't know if you can do all every day or every week. And as he was building his business. But I certainly know that I'm going to try. Because I know that those 12 things, if they're done to the highest level of efficiency and execution and possibility, there is no way. 24 transactions, that's laughable. You will do far more than that. Far more than that. So I want you to know that when you read that this is something about 6 years ago, between 5 and 6 years ago, I wrote. It's not just something, hey, we should come up with this thing, and we don't have anything else to say in the morning, we'll just read that. That's not where it came from. It came from the idea that what must you do? Because the market was so bad that agents were doing all sorts of stupid things, and I was like, what should they be doing? I was watching agents completely dismantle themselves emotionally, mentally, physically from this business, and checking out and not knowing what direction to turn. And that you notice it doesn't say, go spend 45 minutes a day on Facebook. Just, it doesn't say go to Snapchat. And it doesn't say go to Pinterest and post your pictures. If your life was on the line financially, this is what you should be doing. Remember what I said? If your life is on the line financially, this is what you should be doing. And not doing at least this as a minimum, you're putting your life in jeopardy financially. So anything different, this is your guide, this is the answers, this is the blueprint, this is whatever you want to call it, the game plan. This is what you do every day. If you'll do it, you are. In the end, I recognize that success comes from consistent action, not one day doing this, not 2 days doing it. Do it every day, and all of a sudden you'll result in and it's predictable. You commit to following steps. Oh my gosh, I can't even say it if I'm not chanting it. I commit to following every step of the 12 steps, the summit of success. I still remember when we wrote that. I'm like, that's a tongue twister. And John said, no, let's leave it. Makes people think. I still remember it. Okay? Brittany, did you raise your hand?
Yes, we were at a Mike Berry event, and he was asking people what their goal was, and he was looking around the room, and he was like, 24, 24, 24, and he's like, where's this 24 coming from?
Oh, I do remember that.
And that's where it came from.
And it came from this. Why does everybody keep saying 24?
Maybe it's time to change to 24.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
It was interesting, though.
My opinion is, as I just glance at it, is I believe that in today's market, this is a guarantee for 50 transactions. If you did this, you'll close it consistently. Consistency is just 42 weeks a year, 80% of the time on track. You will make well over $300,000 a year. That's what will happen. So we don't run out of time. We got 5 minutes left. But then some of you, how many of you have been to an Unleash the Power Within with Tony Robbins? I mean, is this not like some of the most powerful moments of like life when that's happening? I mean, I think so.
Since you said it, I just got choked up. Just, it gives you a whole different meaning to it when you go through it.
Yeah, it does. So if you haven't gone to UPW, Unleash the Power Within, I'm going to San Jose, California. I think I got sent some stuff from Debbie it's October. There is one in June, but the Superstar Retreat for Mike Ferry's in July. But in October, I hope all of you guys will join us and be part of what we're doing in October. This has a great deal of meaning to me because, especially as I look at it, is that who's going to lead you, right? It's about basically being your best self. It's about defining the fact that you are the voice and that you chart your own course. You set your own sail. You do and have, or you have the ability to lead yourself. So, just remember how important these are. I guess the thing you could say is that a little bit of rah-rah? Yeah, but it's also a reminder. Now, you can say it what you consider an affirmation, and then you can go do something totally different. And in so many words, you could say that you could consider that to be a lie, but the reality is that if you'll just simply do more of what you say, you've got a much better chance of success and a much better chance of joy and happiness in your life. And that this life really is about stepping up. And so some of you, I see them step up. That's fun. I can't make you do it. I mean, you're here, that's a good thing in itself. But I would just challenge you to remember that this business, this life is about stepping up, and very few people do. Just 400 plus million people on this planet. Unless you're living in a box, the election for the President of the United States has come down to 4 people. Now, I don't know about you, but I really would appreciate someone else stepping up. But the fact is that no one else is. I'm saying I would really appreciate if someone else would, but no one else does. Right?
Wow.
So I mean, I want you to think about the reality of how important it is that literally, like almost physically, that you should be stepping up. What makes you invaluable to another human being is one thing, in my opinion. It is helping them get to the next level. It's helping them step up. When Mark Eaton came and spoke, and he asked that question, he said, what makes you invaluable to another human being? And I was fascinated. I didn't have the right answer. And everyone gave lots of answers as people were saying, oh, this, that, and it's not that they were bad answers. But he said, again, what makes you invaluable? What makes it to where they'll pay you as an agent, right? Well, it's because you take them to the next level. You help them step up. That's what makes you invaluable. So in life, whether it be your family, whether it be your children, whether it be a friend, an associate, another agent, our job is to get people to the next level. Whether it be and also the client, the buyer, the seller, the loan ball, right? I mean, it doesn't matter. It's making sure we help people get to the next level in their life, and then you become invaluable. In so many words, they can't live without you. Like to not have you there is a real problem. Like they stop making decisions if you're not around because you become so invaluable to them. And then in closing on this, just these affirmations. These affirmations were built around this. Years ago, we had a handful of agents. We said, hey, give us like your top 2 or 3 affirmations. And then we did another thing. We said, here's the 6 things of building the right foundation. Purpose, mindset, skills, plans, schedules, disciplines, systems, strategies, health, relationships. So those 3 pillars, right? Health, relationships, money, business. And so all of these are derived from that. And so sometimes I know it may seem like it's exhausting when you're saying it, but I would tell you that, there's days where, silly little things come into my head that I've chanted. Things like, oh yeah, I drink water daily. I mean, seriously, right? The other ones, I am unstoppable. I'm a real estate rock star. It might seem like, these things come into my mind just randomly as I'm like walking down a hallway or as I'm working through the day, reminding myself who I am. Now, I believe that an affirmation or incantation with no action is delusion, right? Right? You can't just say it and then not do it, or you can't just say it and then never try to do it. But does anybody know why these are? It doesn't say maybe I'll become, maybe I'll try to be passionate about real estate. It doesn't say I'm really going to work today on being happy. It doesn't say I love most of my life. It doesn't say those things, right? It doesn't say I once in a while handle my money wisely and I profit every day. Maybe there is a moment where you slow down and say, let me just read these slowly. I mean, does anybody have trouble keeping up with them when we read them? This will be the first time you've read them. I hope that you would be one that would say, does everybody else have them done?
Thank you, everybody.
I had Will a few days ago. Will Cooper said, I can't believe you memorized those. Well, after 15 years, I hope so. I'm no Jack Nicholson, but I think I can read some script and eventually memorize it after 15 years. So I hope that you recognize that whatever you might think like this meeting is about, if all that you got out of it was just the fact that you had the integrity to do what you said you were going to do, that you read affirmations, you internalized them, you felt the emotion of them, and then last but not least, just speaking of reading them, is that when you read them, I would challenge you to read them as loud as you can, as passionate as you can, and truly embrace them into your soul, into your heart, your mind, your brain, every part of who you are. And here's the deal. The reason why I'm able to tell this story, many of you have heard it, the story about me jumping off the 2-story deck of my house. The reason why I'm able to tell that story, and I remember so clearly landing in that 1-foot swimming pool and running around the house and running in and saying, Mom, I didn't kill him, I didn't die. And she's like, what are you talking about? I jumped off the 2-story deck and I lived. I remember it because there was tremendous emotion behind it. I remember when I got kicked out of primary. Has anyone ever gotten kicked out of your Sunday school? Pete, good job. High five. It was for a spit wad about this big that I hit on a lady by the name of Wendy Carter, my best friend's sister. And it was a huge spit wad. It hit her right in the chest, dude. And I couldn't come back until, I went and saw the ecclesiastical authorities. And, so I remember that. Right? I remember taking a jump with my bike as a kid. And I remember landing and just rolling out. And it was the height, for me, it was the height. In fact, I was an adult, I've gone back and looked at this jump. And I thought, this thing had to be, as tall as this ceiling. Of course, the jump, I'm not kidding, it was this high. It was a flower garden this high off the ground. But I felt like it was amazing, and I remember it. And here's the only reason I remember it. Because of all the emotion, all the endorphins, and everything that flooded into me when those things were happening. That's the fun stuff that I remember. But look, I get it. There's all the bad things that you remember. I remember when my sister came home off of her bus. She was mentally handicapped, and right when the bus driver opened the door in front of our house, he screamed, "She's dead. She's not breathing." I remember rushing out and picking her up in her lifeless body, putting her onto actually my bed at the time, and giving her CPR and pounding her chest, and paramedics coming. And I remember that. She died in my arms. I remember that. And I remember anything that has emotion to it, good or bad, tragic or great. So when you think about affirmations, or now I am the voice, or why do you wonder, is it fair to say that I'm usually louder than most of you in the room? Joanne, is that a fair statement?
That is very fair.
My friends say you're like a gunshot across a lake. You're so loud at times. Because I believe that if I say it loud enough, just maybe, in my heart and my mind and my whole soul, my body, everything, that it might just resonate and become who I want to become. So those are more about it becoming, and so I don't live a life of delusion that my life then tries to live towards those things that I say. But I would challenge you to remember that if you don't say it with great emotion, if you just go through the motion with not the E on it, right, the energy, right, it's not going to have the impact. It's just, you're like, oh yeah, I'm not really into that. The reason you're not into it is because it hasn't like sunk in. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay? All right, let's wrap up. But John, finish this up, and then let's roll.